Now, you want to take and only take what has been given to you. You can't pretend or sort of assume that, oh, well, maybe this is also true. The only thing that's true is what I've given you. I've given you a factor. Do you see it kind of hidden in the little sentence there? I've given you a factor. And obviously, I've given you a graph. I think most people can see that. So what can you give, not me, but what can you give yourself here? Can you figure out the degree? Okay, and it's obviously using kind of a combination of ideas from the last few days. So just given a factor and this graph, what is the degree? Now, if we were doing this like with a little Google Meet, I would have asked you to do what some of you are already doing. That is trying to engage each other. So engage. You're together. It's usually better. So feel free to talk about it. I want you to do that. So as you feel comfortable, what do you think? What does your neighbor think? Is there anything else to this? Sometimes, like a little catch. I don't know. Maybe there isn't. If you were in front of your camera, I might have had you hold up your fingers appropriately. Why don't you do the same? Using your fingers, if you have enough to do that, what do you think is a degree? Okay, so you can look around too, but there's a lot of people waving at me. I assume that means 5. There's some funny ways of saying 7, but I see 7 if I'm counting right. So it seems like 5 and 7. Am I missing somebody's sort of contribution? Okay, now one of those answers is correct. Which one is it? Well, how many roots do you get out of this imaginary, how many roots do you get out of this factor? Why? Why is it 2? And then you're going to end up with, so when you take the square root, I think of even, good, you'll get plus or minus. Now, I think that we can all see what plus or minus you're going to get. But the truth is, I could have even put just a letter right here. I could have said x squared plus a. That'd make for a better problem. Maybe I'll do that next time. But you're going to get plus or minus. You're going to get 2. Okay. All right. Well, how are we doing so far? 2. How many do we get out of this? Hannah? 2. Why? Good. And of course, that's the only kind of touching we want to see. So I'll take this one. We also get 2. Oops. Well, looks like we're going to get 1 from that. Okay. So, of course, because it crosses. I think if you add those numbers up, you get 7. But there's a catch. There is a catch to this one. Now, to be clear, x to the 7th or 7, which is really the answer, is actually literally the minimum, the lowest degree possible. As it's insinuated here, we could add something to this. So now 7's a good starting point. It literally is the starting degree, but we could add something. Okay, now as a little bit of a hint, it's going to be an expression. An expression, it's not an equation. An equation has an equal sign, but an expression would be something that contains numbers variables and, well, as I showed you here, a plus or minus sign. So an expression. And this kind of takes us to the thinker part of this. It's kind of neat. If somebody thinks they have an idea, feel free to share. What do you guys think? Go ahead, Hannah. No, because the x squared plus 5 is a little more of like the equation. You know, if I was going to try to make the equation of the p of x, maybe I would start lining up all those factors and then FOIL till your heart's content. Not quite that idea. It actually is just more something to do with, well, with the roots. Now, I didn't really say you were wrong because I expected you guys to say that it was 2. But it could have been any even number. So it could have been a 4. Now, wait a minute. If this was a 4, now my degree is 9. Now my degree is 9. Well, same thing with this one. How about this one? It could have been any odd number. Now, this is the one that kind of people don't realize because, wait a minute, if this was the next odd number, 3, right? Now my degree is, well, it depends on where we left off. But, you know, if I left off at 9, my degree is going to now go up to 11. You see what's happening here? My degree is 7, but it could be 9. Oh, it could be 11. But so how do you describe these numbers? How do you describe numbers that, well, that start at 7, hint, hint, and then I seem to be adding. Go ahead. What was the last thing? So it's going to feel like that because it's going to be an expression. It's going to be an expression. I'll stop you short of like saying that it's going to use maybe a sigma sign. We don't have to add our numbers together, but I feel like that you're on the right track because we're going to, again, it's going to look like a formula. It's going to look like an expression. Do you guys agree that we're simply adding multiples of 2? I'm adding multiples of 2. So how do I describe that? So it's something I want you guys to start to, kind of get more comfortable with. I could describe it with, I'm wondering if anyone was thinking 2n. Okay, so 7 plus 2n, it's an expression for any of those possible numbers. Obviously, 7 was the most common, but it can be any increment of, or any addition of 2 more, which actually ends up being the odd numbers after 7. Be careful, kids. The imaginary numbers that we got in the beginning, they're not a part of this. Like the x squared plus 5, that's always going to be 2. So that doesn't sort of add, but it's the graph that has the potential to add more.